What Lynette Zang's doing in this presentation, she's looking at and she's spelling out a long-term totalitarian tiptoe plan that has been carried out over the last 100 years or so.
Yeah.
And so the highlights of this plan is a long-term shifting of the entire global economy from trading real physical assets like gold, commodities, real estate, etc., to a digitized platform that trades real assets for digital ether. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, this is the new world order, one world currency.
That's how I see it.
And it's also the mark of the beast.
Top of the morning, everyone.
No matter where in the world you are, this is
Real Speaks.
Welcome back, everybody,
Hello, everyone.
to another amazing show for Real Speaks. And apologies for not being around the last couple weeks. Tivon and I were really busy doing some business stuff. And,
Yeah, that's right.
This show is like, it's our labor of love, it's our
Yeah.
passion, and we want to put it out as a service to people. And we apologize if we have to skip a week every now and then, but that's because it's even better when we come back with a show like this one.
Absolutely.
Something huge happened in the last couple of weeks
Absolutely amazing.
with the whole financial sector,
Mhm.
and this show is going to explain, to the best of our abilities, ACChain,
Right.
cryptocurrency, the mark of the beast, a woman that came out recently called Lynette Zang.
Yes.
And the goal of this, there's been a lot of people talking about it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The goal of this show is we want to take everybody kind of back to the beginning. We want to fill in the audience that doesn't understand what's going on,
Yeah.
and we really want to start from square one. So we're going to define everything, like what is a cryptocurrency, how is it made, how is it stored, what's going on. And the reason why is because we actually think that this story that's come out is probably the most important story for financial information that we've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Really, in our whole lifetime. This is that important, and it's that important that people understand it. So we're going to try really hard to walk you through what just happened so that you can decide and you can be informed, and we'll also give you all the links in the actual blog post so that you can go and watch all these videos on your own and do your research to get a better understanding as to what's going on.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. I'm blown away by the information that Lynette Zang came out with. Again, what she is a chief financial analyst at ITM Trading with a vast career. And she presented things in a way that I find very revealing about the long-term trends of where the global markets are going, and how there appears to be a split in alternative media with regard to people's takes on cryptocurrency and in gold and silver. And anyway, the information and people coming out to attack her and all this stuff that's been going on recently, I find very revealing. And I hope this particular episode we're able to in some way give people a high-level idea and perspective of what's just happened here.
And well, you just hit on a point. This woman comes out, and I actually, for me personally, because I have a background in finance, I myself was a financial analyst, and I did Wall Street training and all kinds of stuff. I have an MBA, blah blah blah. You know, that's me.
Yes, yeah.
I've told people this before. So this was what I used to do in the corporate world before I left the corporate world to start my own business ventures and do my own thing. Lynette Zang reminds me of one of my old bosses that I really liked and appreciated and respected, because the lady obviously knows what she's talking about. She also knows how to communicate it very clearly.
Yes.
Whereas when I listen to other financial shows, like many people, I get lost. And I have training in financial analysis, right? So I still get lost when I hear the talking heads using all these buzzwords that I can't quite understand.
Right, yeah.
And, plus, the other thing about Lynette Zang that I think is interesting is that she's a woman. And, it's a man's world. The
Yeah.
financial markets it's the old boys club.
Mm-hmm,
And I was the woman in the boardroom meeting with all men
Mm-hmm.
when I was working in finance. So I kind of feel like, since she's a woman, she has to fight even harder sometimes to be heard
Right.
or taken seriously. And that does
Right.
happen in the corporate world. Let's just call it for what it is. That happens. So you just hit on people
Mm-hmm.
coming out and attacking her.
Yeah.
And we're going to show you a few clips here, but that's actually what happened. This woman came out with a few videos. She was on some different interviews
Right.
with different people like SGT Report and a few others. And immediately all these other talking heads that work in financial spheres that all have YouTube channels, they started attacking her. There's Lynette Zang exposed videos, and they were just like really acting strange.
Well,
Right?
This started after a piece an episode that she did on the 9th of August on the ITM Trading YouTube channel, talking about the use of the special drawing right, or SDR, the IMF's SDR, in an electronic form using the blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Now, if you don't know what any of that means, don't worry. Hang in there, because we're actually going to walk through every single definition. Okay? So just hang in there with us. What we're trying to bring to the story first is that all of these people that we've been listening to for years, who give out financial advice about whether you should buy gold or silver, what's going on in the markets,
Right.
the global reset of currency, of financial collapse, all those different headlines. We've been listening to a group of different people for many years now. And we noticed these people that we knew and respected, all of a sudden they were changing their tone.
It was out of character.
They started acting weird, and they started attacking this woman, and they weren't backing up their argument with anything solid. So
It was ad hominem attacks.
yeah, it was just like they got triggered. They got triggered with something. And Tivon and I were going, what the heck is going on? Because we had never heard about this woman before either.
No.
And it was like, let's take a look into this. And so we started digging. And this woman, Lynette, she's a researcher and a digger as well. And she's got a much broader scope than we do. And her research is amazing. So that's what this is. It's us showing you what we found. And you can decide why you think all these people started going kind of crazy. And unfortunately, we had to unsubscribe from some of our favorite YouTube channels because they were just out of character. And it looks like they had some kind of different motive going on.
Well, this is the way it works. If no one has any, like SGT said, no one has any monopoly on the truth. So if someone is willing to go online, especially on YouTube, and show their face, put their full name, and their resume is accessible, and there's no hiding who they are, and they show their complete professional career to bear, there's no benefit in doing that, especially if they're getting attacked. But if they're doing it to put out the truth, in my books, they have more credibility than the person who's hiding behind a pseudonym with no face, no full name, not open as far as their background. I don't know who I'm listening to. I might like the charisma, I might like listening to them. But when it comes down to weight, as far as who's has more skin in the game, as far as their professional career, I give it to the person who puts their full name and resume out there. And company. I've listened to her, and she has multi-decade experience in the financial markets.
Yeah,
she's not someone who doesn't know anything. She clearly knows what she's talking about, and from what she is showing, the information she presents, her skill set primarily is in looking at long-term trends. So if anyone has anything else to trump the information she's presenting, they should put it out. Put it out
and make it clear to understand, and try to put it out without like a whole bunch of insulting energy, because that just gets kind of tiring to listen to. Also, just on that same note, if anybody really wants to know who Tivon and I are, we put our pictures up and our bios up on our website. realspeaks.com in the About Us section. You can go see what we look like and all that stuff. You
Right.
can look us up on LinkedIn. We're not hiding. We just actually, we make shows this way because it's easier than setting ourselves up in front of a camera. And we just think it's a little more pleasant to look at when we do screen shares and stuff like that. So we're not hiding, and we're not anonymous. We're real people with real backgrounds that just wanted to put our little piece into the YouTube sphere, right?
Right.
All right, so let's walk into this. This is kind of the outline of this show. First, we're going to walk you through a whole bunch of definitions so that you understand what it is that people are talking about when it comes to this cryptocurrency, New World Order, global currency thing that's happening right now, right?
Also, when we talk about this, we're trying to do it at a high level.
Yeah.
We're trying to do it at the point to where you get the concept. We don't have any expectation, nor anyone should expect you to be a rocket scientist or a chemist to understand what is being explained. What's important about this is that there's an opposition that's out there that does not want the population to get a high-level understanding, the general concept of what these platforms are or what they mean as far as how they can affect you or your life.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that I did learn while I was working in finance is that that's by design, is that they make things really confusing because it's my opinion that they make things confusing in finance because they want people to feel like they're not smart enough to understand all those big fancy financial terms. So they'll just let somebody else understand it all for them and therefore let someone else manage their money, and that is how they take control over people. And that's actually the reason why I got into finance in the first place, is because I realized that whoever holds the money is the one that has a lot of power in a lot of situations, and I didn't want to give my power over to become a slave to somebody else who just had control over me. So that's why I got into finance, to try to understand it. So like I said, we're going to first define terms so that you feel like you understand. Then we're going to dig into what actually happened with Lynette Zang. We're going to show you some clips from SGT report and see some of the heated discussions and how everybody was attacking her. We'll also touch on, people like Rogue Money went off on Lynette Zang as well, so we'll fill you in on some of those details of how that unfolded. Basically, we're taking you on the journey with us as to how we discovered this information so you can follow our tracks as well. Then we're going to actually go into what it was that Lynette Zang was disclosing, uncovering, explaining, and that's really the meat of this show, is to show you what's happening here. And please go through the whole thing. We're trying to lay a really good foundation so that when we get to the point where we're explaining what's actually taking place, you'll understand it and you'll be able to have that aha moment and go, whoa, this is huge.
Also, please understand, I know some of you already are familiar with this whole thing with ad hominem attacks on researchers. Whether you agree with someone or not, at the end of the day, it comes down to information, the burden of proof, checking, cross-referencing links and references. So we have provided links at the end of this program. Please have a look at Lynette's work, have a look at other people, look at the other argument talking about, this stuff control isn't possible through the blockchain. Have a look at all sides, but I have to tell you, when it comes to the burden of proof, it's very solid about what we're about to discuss.
Yeah, and at the end of this show, we're going to take an interesting direction because that's our own style. We're going to talk about the spiritual aspects and the spiritual implications behind what's going on here with ACChain and this currency situation. And we'll be talking about things like gold, things like alchemy, things like the fallen angels teaching alchemy of gold making, and how the fallen angels, as listed in the book of Enoch, were most probably responsible for the creation and implementation of the current financial slavery system that we're all living in. And we'll just kind of highlight some stuff, and as usual, let you take it from there. But once we get to the end, you'll see where we're going with it. Okay, so let's begin with cryptocurrency. The first one that came out that everybody kind of knew about was Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. So we're going to try to define as best as we can what cryptocurrency is And before we do, I want to let everybody know that I was trying really hard to find a simple, clear explanation that a 5-year-old could understand, and one does not exist.
No.
Even when they say this is an explanation that a 5-year-old would understand, they start talking about blockchains and they use all these big fancy words, and it's like, that's not going to help. So let me read the definition as it is listed on the internet. I think this is from Wikipedia.
Right.
A cryptocurrency is a digital currency in which encryption techniques are used to regulate the generation of units of currency and verify the transfer of funds, operating independently of a central bank.
Right.
Decentralized cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin now provide an outlet for personal wealth that is beyond restriction and confiscation. So that doesn't really help. I don't understand that. Like I said. So Tivon, do your best to explain what cryptocurrency is.
For me, I think of cryptocurrency as an alternative to PayPal. It is money for the internet. It is
Digital. It's digital currency.
It's digital currency.
Okay, so digital currency that's created how? How do they make the currency?
When this Bitcoin craze first came out in 2008, it was advertised that you can create your own Bitcoin by having your computer, your desktop computer, download an app and become part of a global network that is mining, what they call mining Bitcoins. It was computer work. Your computer was performing work on a set of calculations. And simply by doing that work, it would create these Bitcoins.
Yes.
These pieces, these units of internet money that you could put into your own digital wallet, similar to your PayPal account, where you have funds in there. You'd have this wallet that would store the Bitcoins that you just made. And that's how it started in 2008. It has grown a lot since then to where the amount of work required to make a Bitcoin now is more complicated than your computer. So most people in that initial phase aren't participating in it anymore. Now, only large server farms can mine for these units of internet currency.
And when you hear the word blockchain, what blockchain is that's the code. That's the code that's used to create the Bitcoin. And the important thing about, well, how come not just anybody can make a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency is because you need to have a sophisticated enough code.
Yes.
So that no one else can steal the code, hack the code, replicate the code without it needs to be a very, very sophisticated code, and that's known as the blockchain, or it's unhackable. But let's just take a quick look at this one explanation about Bitcoin explained to a 5-year-old. This is from Coindesk.com. It's how to explain Bitcoin to a 5-year-old. If you still can't figure out what the heck a Bitcoin is, this simple explanation for a 5-year-old may help you. We're sitting on a park bench. It's a great day. I have one apple with me. I'll give it to you. You now have one apple and I have 0. That was simple, right? Let's look closely at what happened. My apple was physically put in your hand. You know it happened. I was there. You were there. You touched it. We didn't need a third person there to help us make the transfer. We didn't need to pull in Uncle Tommy's, who's a famous judge, to sit with us on the bench and confirm that the apple went from me to you. The apple's yours. I can't give you another apple because I don't have any left. I can't control it anymore. The apple left my possession completely. You have full control over that apple now. You can give it to your friend if you want, and then that friend can give it to his friend, and so on. So that's what an in-person exchange looks like. I guess it's really the same whether I'm giving you a banana or a book, a quarter, or a dollar bill, right? So then it goes on just a little bit more. Let's say I have one digital apple. Here, I'll give you my digital apple. Now it's getting interesting. How did you know that that digital apple, which used to be mine, is now yours and only yours? Think about it for a second. It's more complicated, right? How did you know that I didn't send that apple to Uncle Tommy as an email attachment first, or your friend Joe, or my friend Lisa too? Maybe I made a couple of copies of that digital apple on my computer. Maybe I put it on the internet and 1 million people downloaded it. As you see, this digital exchange is a bit of a problem. Sending digital apples doesn't look like sending physical apples. So that's why you need to have a really, really complex code
Yes.
that nobody else can replicate or hack into, right?
So for us to trust this transaction is possible over the internet, we have to trust the code. We have to trust the security of the blockchain. This becomes an issue later in our discussion.
Now, let's just go a little bit more, a little bit deeper, okay? And maybe this will help some people get a better understanding of it too. So first, the way money was created was something valuable that supposedly could not be replicated, such as gold would be the value of an economy, right? Everything that has a value, you know, you would peg it to gold. And then from there, you had dollars or fiat currency that was supposed to be backed by gold, that representing how much gold a country had, right? And that's the country's wealth, and that's where the money system comes from, is based on gold.
Right.
And then you have bills or notes that are supposed to represent physical gold that's sitting in a vault somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole money system kind of originated in the beginning.
Right.
Then, about 100 years ago, we completely got off all of that gold, and we started just printing money out of nothing, and we started removing the gold standard.
Right.
We pegged it to oil,
Yes. Yeah.
saying that the money was now pegged to oil, petrodollar, and all of that,
Yeah.
right? And so now we're trying to remove it completely from printed money, from fiat currency.
Yes.
And we're trying to put it into a digital form
Right.
so that you don't have anything at all physical. It's, you know, at least paper money is on paper, and you can like print it, count how many you printed, and then destroy those that are out of circulation, so on and so forth.
Right.
But digital currency is just, it's in the ether.
Yes.
It doesn't exist except on a computer screen, right?
Yes.
So people say, well, how do you make money? It's like, well, if you have $1 and you're taking that dollar to the store, you know, to buy a bottle of water or something with it, right? That's the money. You have faith in that dollar, that dollar, when you give it to that clerk behind the counter, is going to actually purchase you something.
Yes.
Right? So that's the money system we're using now as far as cash. You have faith in that piece of paper that if you need stuff, you can take that piece of paper and give it to somebody else that has what you need, and you can exchange it for goods.
Right.
Right? So you're not walking around with giant, you know, wheelbarrows full of gold coins to buy a house.
Well,
right? You have faith in a currency. So it's the same exact thing that's going on with this digital thing, that you would have faith in a digital account with digital money in it that's close to, I mean, well, we're not talking about your online bank. The online bank that you have is still connected to paper money. We're talking about a digital bank, right? A digital wallet.
Right. So with the leap from going from a gold standard or standard of real physical assets like gold, silver, platinum, what have you, into the paper fiat currency, the governments of the world had to present this level of trust that a government note, which is like the US dollar, for example, is as good as represents some fraction of that asset that when it used to be backed by gold or barrels of oil, what have you. That note is as good as what the government says it is. So we're able to do these transactions. And that took a long time to have people and nations transition from one system to another.
In the past.
In the past.
Yep.
So now there's another cell that, well, this system clearly isn't working. And there needs to be another system that's even better, that you can believe in, that you can trust. And now we enter the system of cryptocurrency.
Right, so let's take it back for just another second to believing in that piece of paper that's called a dollar bill that would buy you something at the store. If it's like, well, okay, I get it, so would you believe in digital currency? And what people need to understand is that if you can buy something with digital currency, that brings faith in money, faith in that currency, right?
Yes.
into the forefront. So a while back, it was making news like, well, you could buy plane tickets with Bitcoin. You
Right.
could buy certain things with Bitcoin. So if you can go get some Bitcoin, and of course the way to get the Bitcoin is you buy it with cash.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, you take your paper money,
Right.
and then you go to a place that sells Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a wallet, and you buy a Bitcoin with your paper money. And right now, one Bitcoin is worth about a little over $4,000 for one Bitcoin, just so people have an understanding as to the value on that Bitcoin. It started at like nothing.
Yeah, like cents.
It started at like 10 cents or something, and that was what?
2008.
2008?
Yeah.
Right?
Almost same year as the financial
So
crisis.
it went from like 10 cents up to like $4,000. I mean, that's in just like, a little under 10 years. So that's crazy.
In a way, of course, many of us are doing transactions online through our cards, debit cards, credit cards, and PayPal.
Right.
So in a way, the society has already made a lot of the transition into exchanging value for wealth through the internet.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what makes up Bitcoin. We hope that you have a really thorough understanding as to what it is, and whether you believe in it or not, or think that it's a good thing or a bad thing, or believe it exists or you don't think it exists. The important thing is that millions of people on the planet right now are actually using Bitcoin to buy things that they need, or they're storing up wealth. So it's in play, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is, and I'm saying it this way because there are millions of people that have no idea what cryptocurrency even is, and this is just kind of passing them by, and they're just not involved. They just don't care because they don't get it, right? So hopefully now you'll start to get it, because it's growing and it's getting to be a really big deal.
Right.
Let's talk about what an ICO is.
Okay.
Here's a definition. An ICO, which is very much like an IPO for a publicly traded company, which is the initial public offering when you have a company that goes on the public market to be traded
Right.
at the stock exchange. An ICO is an initial coin offering. It's also commonly referred to as an ICO. It's a fundraising mechanism in which new projects sell their underlying crypto tokens in exchange for Bitcoin and Ether.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the definition, right? It's somewhat similar to an initial public offering, IPO, in which investors purchase shares of a company. So when a group of people, they call themselves a community of online coin making people,
developers, entrepreneurs.
they have all these different names they call themselves. But when
Right.
a group of people are getting together because they want to create their own cryptocurrency,
Right.
they go through this huge process called an ICO, where they basically have to go around and convince all the investors that might be out there as to why they should invest real money
That's right.
into their new cryptocurrency before it's actually officially launched as a coin,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, since 2008, there, in addition to Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, there's all these other coins in existence by other developers that have taken the open source code of Bitcoin and have tried to make their own coin with what they believe are certain advantages.
And right now we've got, I don't even know how many coins have countless.
Yeah.
Thousands of new coins have just popped up out of nowhere very,
Right.
very quickly. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. So mark that spot and remember that there's a whole bunch of ICOs that just came out of nowhere recently. And there's a significant reason why we're seeing that. So that's what an ICO is. And then also, we're going to talk a little bit about explaining the cryptocurrency nodes and mining so that you understand what that means. Okay, again, this is from CoinDesk, but Bitcoin nodes and why do we need them? It's well known that Bitcoin is designed as a decentralized peer-to-peer network. However, what's often lost in translation is the sheer amount of machinery that is needed to maintain this global infrastructure. For example, in order to validate and relay transactions, Bitcoin requires more than a network of miners processing transactions, it must broadcast messages across a network using nodes. This is the first step in the transaction process that results in a block confirmation. Okay, so you can go and look at this yourself. Let's just kind of like expand it. So what's a node?
Okay, so basically, a node is a network of, well, at this stage, mining machines, but large server farms. Remember earlier when I said that initially when Bitcoin first came out, you could have a computer, your own desktop, do algorithms to, when they solve them, a coin is generated, a unit that you can put in a wallet that accumulates over time that you can use to buy stuff.
So it's like how much processing speed does your little laptop or your PC have to to process this particular function to create a coin?
That's right. So the algorithm is interesting because the more coins that are generated by all these computers online, it gets harder and harder to solve the next part of the algorithm, so that you need more powerful machines to do it.
Yes.
So at this stage,
I'm going to get a more powerful processor. I'm going to get a computer that can run many more programs on it before it crashes. And I'm breaking it down this way because people have, like, let's say you didn't get the expensive laptop.
Right.
You bought the cheap laptop, and now you're trying to like run a movie making program, and you're streaming YouTube at the same time, and you're also typing a Word document, and your computer is slow and it crashes because you don't have enough power.
Right.
You don't have enough RAM or memory or processing speed or whatever. If you would have spent the extra $800 on that higher end laptop, you'd be able to do so much more, so much quicker with your more expensive laptop. It's the same thing when it comes to mining.
That's
and
right.
the processors, the speed, the equipment, and these nodes are basically centers with a whole bunch of mining machines.
That's right.
Mining processors that are creating lots and lots and lots of Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies.
And that's why they're called miners, or mining. The act of mining is basically, these are collection of server farms. Server farms, whole warehouses full of servers running 24/7 with the fans turned on, with the $50,000 a month electric bill, cranking out cryptocurrency through running calculations. That is what the act of mining is.
And I want you to take a look at this picture here in the background on this CoinDesk article, and it's just got these little circles with these. These are supposed to represent the nodes.
Yes.
The nodes, which are centers of processing machines. And it's important I'm pointing this out because later on we're going to show you a video that is loaded with subliminal messages, and these little nodes are all over it. So just take a quick look at that.
Now, for this whole technology and platform to work with cryptocurrencies, these nodes, these collections of server farms, need to talk to each other quickly, constantly, to make sure to keep everything current, to keep everything up to date, to keep all the information accurate.
Yeah. So the string going from node to node is the communication network. It could be the internet connection. It could be something different, but it's the way that they communicate from node to node. It's a communication network, right?
That's right.
And by the way, currently I think there's thousands of these across the planet. These nodes, these centers, thousands of them at least.
Yes.
And so you'll hear a lot of people who are defending Bitcoin saying it can't be hacked because there's thousands and thousands of nodes across the whole network, across the whole planet, and so that's why it can't be hacked. And that would make sense.
Yes.
But we're going to show you something else that you need to understand. So we're going to talk about encryption and 256-bit encryption.
There we go.
So here we go. So 256-bit encryption. This is the level of encrypted coding that makes up this whole node system.
At least in Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies. So here's a definition. 256-bit encryption is a data file encryption technique that uses 256-bit key to encrypt and decrypt data or files. It's one of the most secure encryption methods after 128 and 192-bit encryption, and is used in most modern encryption algorithms, protocols, and technologies, including AES and SSL. So SSL, think about that. That's like, you go to a website and you
Right.
want to put in your credit card information, and it needs to be an SSL website to be secure for financial transactions so nobody can hack in and steal your credit card number, that kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's SSL. Let's go further.
Also, 256-bit encryption refers to the length of the encryption key used to encrypt a data stream or file. A hacker or a cracker will require a 2 to the 256th power, different combinations to break a 256-bit encrypted message, which is virtually impossible to be broken by even the fastest computers. Now, this definition is taken out of Technopedia, but we're going to explain that there's some new information dealing with that basically does not make that definition true. Typically, 256-bit encryption is used for data in transit or data traveling over a network or internet connection. However, it is also implemented for sensitive and important data such as the financial, military, or government-owned data. The U.S. government requires that all sensitive, important data be encrypted using 192 or 256-bit encryption methods. Now, that is the definition taken out of technopedia.com.
It's very public and easy to find, and it's what they want you to see, right?
Well, it's what they want you to see, but anyone who's working in the computer fields or IT industry is aware of there's encryption methods much, much stronger than that. In that, quite frankly, this method of encryption is antiquated compared to what the new hardware is able to do.
And we'll get into that in just a second. First, we just want to show you a couple of reference articles that talks about how, the NSA, the government level of encryption. This is one from the Hacker News. It's dated from September 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin secured by NSA, designed, encrypted, or backdoored. And this article basically just, the basics of this article is to say that this is the level of encryption that's used for Bitcoin.
Basically, yes.
Right, so we're just kind of backing it up by showing you one article, and we have one more to show you as well. Now, this is an article that says, is Bitcoin's ACChain 256-bit encryption safe from the NSA? Again, this is also in 2013. But the important part of this article is that this part right here, the takeaway information, which reads,
while thousands of Bitcoin miners and users swear by its powerful encryption and lack of government control, in the future, another Snowden may reveal that a backdoor into Bitcoin really did exist. And though Bitcoin itself may not be compromised yet, there is an Android-based malware in the wild that can steal Bitcoins from digital wallets. Now, we've been aware for the past couple of years, there have been all kinds of malicious code on the Android operating system, which is Linux-based, that would basically steal the Bitcoins out of people's wallets who had wallets on their smartphones.
All right, so now that we're at this point, we have an understanding about what cryptocurrency is, how it's made,
Mm-hmm.
how it's stored, how it communicates, and the level of security or encryption that's needed. And all of this is what's been in the public knowledge base for the past few years.
Right.
Okay? And let's just start with a tiny bit of history, too. When Bitcoin first came out, there were people that were all about gold and silver.
That's right.
And they said, no, Bitcoin is awful, don't do it. They were anti-Bitcoin.
That's right.
They thought that cryptocurrency coming from the ether, not backed by anything solid
Mm-hmm.
or real, was not a good idea, right?
If you don't hold it, you don't own it.
If you don't hold it, you don't own it. That's what they were saying all over the place. Now, Tivon was listening to these folks back in when? What year?
And we're talking,
Roughly?
Ever since the more like 2012, 2013,
2012,
2014, around
right?
it, yeah.
2012. So that's
Yeah,
what they were saying.
That's when they first started off with that.
Then, a couple years ago, in 2015,
Yeah.
roughly, about 2 years ago,
Something changed.
there was this big shift. And all of the people, the talking heads on all the YouTube shows.
A lot of them did.
Right? A lot of them that used to trash and bash Bitcoin, they suddenly they changed sides. They said, oh, you know what? I was wrong. Bitcoin is fantastic. Everybody that listens to my show, you should all buy it, right?
Yeah.
Something major shifted.
Right.
So now that we've got this Lynette woman coming out talking about what's going on, all those people that used to trash Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That now are supporting Bitcoin, they're now trashing Lynette for talking about what Tivon just mentioned could be the back door.
Well, what's interesting about this, what's going on here is Lynette Zang works for ITM Trading. This company deals with all kinds of portfolios of people who invest in gold.
Yeah.
Period. So she would be classified as someone who would have a support base that are gold bugs, or people who invest in gold and silver and precious metals.
And there's been a big move in those markets, which we'll get into in a minute.
But why are other talking heads and pundits for gold and silver who've hopped on the Bitcoin bandwagon, why are they attacking this woman? As instead, I would imagine that they would be looking at her as a colleague.
Right. Now, what we think it is, and we're still talking about definitions here. What we think it is and what she says it is, that changed everybody's tune suddenly in the last couple of weeks, has to do with quantum computing.
Yes.
So we're going to tell you what quantum computing is.
Right.
Quantum computing studies theoretical computation systems, quantum computers, that make direct use of quantum mechanical phenomena such as superposition and entanglement to perform operations on data. Just bear with me as I get through the rest of the definition, right? Because we'll keep explaining. Quantum computers are different from binary digital electric computers based on transistors, whereas a common digital computing requires that the data be encoded into binary digits, each of which is always in one of two definite states, which is a 0 or a 1, binary. Quantum computation uses quantum bits, which can be in superpositions of states. Now, I know that was really heady, so we're going to dig into this a little bit further. And to best do this, there's this concept called quantum entanglement. This is all part of quantum physics. So, quantum entanglement is a physical phenomenon that occurs when a pair or groups of particles, right? So you have these two particles, and they're generated or they interact in such ways that the quantum state of each particle cannot be described independently of the others, even when the particles are separated by a long distance. Instead, a quantum state must be described. So kind of what that is, let's take two particles that come from the same source, right? We're going to take one particle, and these were actual experiments that were done scientifically.
And it's been repeated many times.
Yeah, so this is to really explain. You take one particle and you put it in a glass tube in New York City. And then you take the other particle that's come from the same place and you put it in another glass tube in Hong Kong.
Right.
Right? Then you do something to the particle in New York City. You start shooting it with some kind of laser beam or something, right?
Yeah.
You do something to that particle. The particle that you're shooting with the laser beam has a reaction in New York City. And at the same time, the particle in Hong Kong that you're not doing anything to has the same reaction at the same time.
Right.
Okay? This is what it means to be quantumly connected.
That's right.
That, time, space, and distance
Is irrelevant.
In other words, you don't have to wait for a voice to travel across an internet cable
Or a beam of light.
or a beam of light to travel across. It happens simultaneously. It gets really spiritual too, because people talk about it like this is how we are connected to God.
Right.
When things can happen instantaneously without having to travel across something, it happens at the same time.
Well defined. Very good.
I try. I mean, I stay up at night thinking about like how amazing this stuff is, right? That's just me, right? So this is quantum entanglement.
Right.
What they're actually doing, I mean, they do this with things like particles. The thing is that you can actually do this with computer components,
To create for calculations.
right, to do calculations.
And now what's important is that what you have to take away from this is that quantum computers do exist. Quantum computers have been in existence for probably decades. And at this point, you can YouTube quantum computers, research the whole topic, and you'll find that it's still cutting edge, and it's still heavily researched, and that there are companies out there that are talking about their advances in quantum computing.
And if you wanted to go a little bit deeper down this rabbit hole of quantum entanglement and quantum experiments and proofs, they have this thing, they call it spooky.
Well, again, this is putting in some kind of
in the field of
paranormal,
science, in the field
property.
of science, when they're talking about quantum mechanics and physics, they call it spooky, right? So you'll see that word all over the place when you're looking into it, on researching YouTube videos. They say action at a distance, right? So, and then, because also there's a whole debate that goes behind this, because Einstein had, things can't travel faster than the speed of light. So if you've got a quantum speed where there's no need to travel across a distance and it's faster than light, then, it's like this huge debate, right?
Yes.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff around it. We're not going to get into it here. Just wanted to kind of give you what the concept was. But it's a really fascinating rabbit hole to go down, especially for you folks that want to meditate deeply on spiritual matters and, why are we all here questions and things like that.
The reason why we're talking about hardware that researchers and large government agencies are engaged in dealing with quantum computing is because the definition we mentioned earlier about encryption with 256-bit truly is antiquated. In fact, if you want to look into the websites dealing with hacking, they're on to talking about the pitfalls and is it possible to hack into a 1024-bit system or a 2048-bit system, because that's when the resources required to do that is immense. Basically, if you look at these websites and the information dealing with from computer scientists and researchers, that's where we really are into how hackable systems are. And 256, quite frankly, is still is seen as merely an exercise from agencies that already have the means to hack into a system with that encryption. So let's just get that out of the way right now. People think that Bitcoin can't be hacked, or let's be more frank and more honest about this. If you have a Bitcoin account with a public key, and there was an agency out there with government resources that wanted to target that account, and that account is encrypted with 200 SHA 256-bit, it can be cracked, period.
Right.
Period. It can be and will be cracked.
It doesn't matter how many thousands of nodes you might think it's encrypted on.
Because they're not interested necessarily in the network, only in certain individuals that they would target in such a scenario. So then the question becomes is how much faith do you have in that platform, and what is its encryption algorithm? So now let's get back into quantum computing.
Well, on that same note, if you've got 256-bit encryption and thousands of nodes and you think that's your security, you think that's your safety and security, what would happen if a quantum computer came along stating that it was going to take over the entire global communications network, and the speed at which those quantum computers would process would be light years ahead of the 256 encryption? What would happen to your Bitcoin? What would happen to it?
What could happen to it?
Well, it's happened. This is the article, this is the news that came out from China. And a lot of people saw this article and they started buying gold. There was a huge push for people to start going and buying gold. And this is significant, what happened here.
I'm looking at this article and I'm thinking what was actually signified might not be people abandoning Bitcoin, but people who were sitting on the fence as to when to invest in precious metals. They saw this article as an indicator of doing it now. This is based on
All right.
this is based on the research of Lynette Zang, and what she was describing in her episode on August 9th.
So this article is China is building a satellite-based global quantum communication network. We'll read some of the important parts of it. Launched over a year ago, and this just came out,
Yeah,
August
it's
10th,
amazing.
2017.
So in 2016,
over a year ago,
they started this experiment.
China's satellite has now demonstrated quantum key distribution to the ground, potentially giving it control over the global communication network. This technology will undoubtedly dovetail with its ambitions to create a dominating global blockchain currency because it will be unhackable.
And now that is from the editor of technocracy.news.
Yeah, and we won't go down the rabbit hole, but we're going to leave you links to Lynette Zang's videos because she goes down these rabbit holes when it comes to China, what China's doing, what a technocracy is all about, and SGT report actually goes down some of these rabbit holes as well and really explains them. So we'll just show you this.
Now, the reason why we keep bringing up that quantum computing is a future is because up to this point, all of us have computers that are silicon-based with electronic switches and requiring current to flow through the circuit, through transistors to do calculations, these ones and zeros. All of this requires time. If you want to do more calculations, you need a bigger, larger computer. But with quantum computing, it's almost an entirely separate technology altogether. You don't need something so large. And with an instant, it can perform numerous calculations that would otherwise require a long period of time to crack encryption.
All right, now we want to talk about ACChain. Okay? So, ACChain stands for Assets Collection Chain. Think about that name.
It's interesting.
Assets Collection Chain. It's an Asian-based cryptocurrency that is digitizing many different kinds of assets, including commodities, real estate, etc. So it's not just a coin, although they have one coming out soon, I believe. It's the digitization of many different kinds of assets.
ACChain is like a mutated form of blockchain.
Yes, and it's Asian-based, mostly China,
Yes.
right?
Right.
We're looking at their website right now, ACChain.org. I want you to take notice of this T visual right here because they just basically digitized T in China, which is the big deal. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, hopefully. But they're digitizing physical assets. And if anybody knows anything about tea in China, it's like one of their biggest commodities
Yes.
is tea, right?
Yes.
It has been for hundreds of years. So if you shift tea over to digitization, then that's a really big cultural shift or
Yes.
global economic shift for places like China.
Absolutely.
And also I want you to take a brief look at the logo up here, the ACChain logo with these chevrons,
Yes,
and
chevrons.
a circle. So we'll be coming back to that when we get into the symbolism behind some of this stuff. All right, let's briefly define what SDR is, because again, we'll be talking about some of these and wrapping them all together. SDR stands for,
Special drawing rights.
so it's like the dollar, but it's on an international level.
Basically, yes.
It's sort of a currency.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was created in 1969 by the IMF, but it became more of something that was used in the 2008 crisis. That's when it became more into view as something that nations were using for liquidity during the economic crisis.
And so, like, here's the actual definition of it from Wikipedia. Special drawing rights, currency code XDR, also abbreviated SDR, are supplementary foreign exchange reserve assets defined and maintained by the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. The XDR is the unit of account for the IMF, and it's not a currency per se. XDRs instead represent a claim to currency held by IMF members, countries for which they may be exchanged. The XDR was created in 1969 to supplement a shortfall of preferred foreign exchange reserve assets, namely gold and the US dollar. So it's not exactly the same thing yet as the US dollar would be, but it's kind of like, it's a vehicle.
Yes.
It's a vehicle of currency representation that is controlled by the IMF.
Right, that's correct.
And you'll see how this is going to, because we think that they're basically going to try to make SDR the one world currency.
Yeah,
okay,
correct.
so that's why we're defining it here. All right, now that we've got through some of those definitions, hopefully you remember what a lot of them mean, because now we're going to go a little bit faster. We're going to walk you through our journey about what happened last week, who is Lynette Zang, what was she talking about, and what were all the commentaries. So first it started when we listened to this particular show done by SGT Report, Sean over at SGT Report.
Yeah.
And he did an interview. It was a heated discussion with Andy Hoffman. They got into a debate, and we're going to actually play you a clip of it right now. First, we'll play you the first minute where Sean is basically describing what he's talking about. Then we're going to fast forward to play you a few minutes from the middle where things start to get really heated.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Look, what you're about to hear is a very heated exchange between Andy Hoffman and myself. And before I play this interview, I just want to say that the slander against Lynette Zang continues to pour out, even today in an exchange between V the Guerrilla Economist and Big Swear, two people with whom I'm friends.
I think she was talking about a super node where it's centralized control of all the assets in the world.
Horse shit.
Stupidity. Complete stupidity.
Horse shit.
And I'm so freaking tired of holding back on this thing because I know everybody's, oh my God, she's such a sweet lady. And she's just
F
trying to
that.
inform the public. Well, she better inform herself first before she goes out and tries to inform the public. Completely ridiculous.
Yeah, totally.
And again, I just don't understand the vitriol. I've never seen it before in this sector of the economic truth community, and I find it troubling. Can I finish? I don't understand. Listen, I really don't understand the vitriol. You talk about conspiracy theories. You're tired of conspiracies, Andy? Okay, what is the ultimate conspiracy? The Federal Reserve in 1913. It's the ultimate conspiracy, Andy. Who sits above the Federal Reserve? The IMF, the World Bank. Who sits above them? The Bank for International Settlements. That is a conspiracy and wide open, man.
As of now, okay, you're hearing it right now, I will never do an interview with anyone that speaks of any kind of conspiracy theories, okay? Of course, the Federal Reserve, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. They met, they coerced the Congress to create the Federal Reserve, and they put in money. There's nothing conspiracy theory about it. Yeah, maybe they met at Jekyll Island to plan it. That's possible. That's not conspiracy theory. Saying that there's gold in the Grand Canyon just because is a conspiracy theory. There's nothing to it.
I don't understand why you keep...
Zang, when she says, well, look, there's a chain. Sean, do you know that there's like 1,000 cryptocurrencies? Who cares? Who cares about Warren, the head of the SDR? Believe me, no one cares. There's going to be no, yes, there is an SDR. It's not going to do anything. There's going to be no ACChain. This Lynette Zang, you'll never hear of her again. We'll never hear of the SDR again in practical usage. All this stuff. People, focus on reality, okay?
So the Chinese government's not on top of any of this visibly. They're not on the table. They are under the table, allowing everybody else to run with this, and they are so silent right now on what's happening. The way they're setting up the Chinese blockchain with the new UN replacement and NEO's platform, it all has to run through a centralized platform. There's no way to connect to it as a third party side chain. You have to connect through their centralized platform, which means it's centralized. It's not decentralized.
There's no gold. If you sell your gold thinking that it's in the Grand Canyon, it's your loss. If you sell Bitcoin thinking that Lynette Zang, who's a complete nobody who comes out of nowhere and suddenly starts telling you that it's going to be commandeered by the IMF and the SDR, good, it's your loss, okay? I am no longer going to be associated with conspiracy theory. I am associated with fact. And as of today, I am never interviewing anyone who does not accept fact, period.
Your emotions are really getting the best of you. I find it
really
telling.
It's
It's
been
so
15
telling.
years of listening to FUD, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Okay, and it hurts people. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What makes people make wise decisions, and why I am a bigger name on the internet than all these people talking, is because I speak facts. And when I don't know facts, I simply lay out what is out there and say you can make your own opinions, but these are the facts. End of story.
Right. So we heard that, and that kind of shifted everything for us. I said, Tivon, you gotta hear this because we love listening to SGT Report.
Yeah.
I personally haven't listened to much of Andy Hoffman, but Tivon's been listening to him for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were just
Yeah.
asking why.
At least 3 years.
Why are they so heated? What's going on? And why is Andy suddenly like really just shifting his position and acting kind of unhinged, right?
Yeah, that was. I haven't heard from him speak that way before.
Right. And if you look at the comments on that video, a lot of people have actually said, I'm unsubscribing from Andy Hoffman. I'm never going to listen to him again because, you know, of how he reacted in this video. So it was really like a turning point for him, we think. And it was just kind of like, why? It made us ask questions.
Yeah.
It's like a couple years back in 2013, 2014, something switched when it comes to promoting Bitcoin, and he was on that same bandwagon where all of a sudden he started promoting the Bitcoin. So now he's completely flipped, and he comes out to attack anyone that even questions Bitcoin's integrity. So we asked the question, why is that?
Well, also, I mean, he was calling Lynette Zang and the material she was putting out as conspiracy theory. Now, we mentioned in our previous shows that has been a term used by the CIA's COINTELPRO program going back into like the 60s to discredit anyone, to dismiss the information.
Yeah,
And
they
so-
made that official. They officially labeled anybody who comes out with the truth, you have to say it's conspiracy theory, and they weaponized the term. There's actually documentation that proves that.
So, 50 years on, this term clearly is still in use, so.
Yeah, and anybody who starts running around claiming conspiracy theory, they're using the weaponized term. And so that makes us suspicious as to what's going on there, right?
Yeah.
Now, then we moved over, because at the beginning of that clip that we just played for you was a short clip from the Rogue Money show, right? With
Yeah.
the Grill Economist and V and CJ and all that, right? So then what happened with them was really interesting, because people listened to the SGT report and they heard them coming out against Lynette Zang and said, well, wait a second, what's wrong with you guys? So apparently Rogue Money got a whole bunch of emails and stuff of people upset with them
Yes.
for coming out against Lynette Zang. So they felt the need to defend themselves, and this was the show that they put out, and we'll play you the clip.
This potential SDR, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I'm going to crush that thing. That is a stupid thing. But go ahead, Siege.
So no, I just want to close it out by just letting our listeners know that there's no personal beefs at all or anything.
No, none.
with we love him to death. We always will. And if he ever has an opinion that's different than ours, or our listeners do, or another media do, that's your right. Go for it.
Yeah, well, you want 1,000%. Like, I would never in my life attack another YouTuber, especially one of my boys, man. SGT is my, Sean SGT. That's my dude. Him, Dave. I love those guys. I support them 1,000%. David X22 report. Those are my dudes. Those are like family. Those are brothers in arms. I love them dearly. And I love the work they do. I'm big fans of their work. My beef was the whole Lynette Zang thing. And the reason for the Lynette Zang is this, okay? It is a dangerous thing for a woman who does not know or nor understand how the system works, especially in crypto, okay? And to come out and start, saying these outlandish things, it's doing a lot of harm, because a lot of people, number one, don't understand cryptocurrencies, okay? They don't understand the blockchain. Here's the problem, man. You got a lot of people with a little knowledge and a big mouth. And you see a lot of them in the chat, you'll see a lot of them in like the comment section. They're like, "Hey, you block, what you gonna do? What you gonna do with your big Bitcoin when the electricity goes out? Huh? There's no more electricity." Well, what are you gonna do when the electricity goes out? Gee, dumbass, how about trying surviving? I think worrying about your Bitcoin stash is the last thing you worry about. That's why you have a paper wallet, dumbass, a paper wallet, and you keep the paper wallet. And then you hold on to it until the lights come back on and Bitcoin's back on. Why? Because if you study the blockchain, you dummy, you would know that Bitcoin is held on tens of millions of nodes and servers.
Right. So we're going to stop that right there. Now, we did actually listen to more of it, right?
Yeah.
So we were trying to say, okay, is he eventually going to get to the point where he details and backs up his statement that he just, trashed Lynette Zang? I mean, I actually had to write this down. He says it's a dangerous thing for a woman who does not know anything about cryptocurrency and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to try really hard not to act like some kind of snowflake around that statement. But let me just tell you this, okay? Working in finance, I was in many ways, I was the only woman in a room full of men in suits, and I dealt in that world. And I don't understand the vitriol. Just like Sean said, I don't understand all the vitriol, all the attacks. But he says the same thing Andy said. She's a nobody. She doesn't know anything. She came out of nowhere. She's a woman. She's, don't pay any attention to that. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's an idiot. And even Andy got really heated in that interview. He was like jealous because she got so many views on YouTube. She got like 150,000 views or something. And so it was like, so that's why, and that's when Tivon and I said, let's look this lady up.
Let's find out.
Let's find out who she is. You want to know who she is? Let's show you her online completely transparent
Look, you really have
resume,
you really have to know that you can't go online and go there about somebody and their work, especially if they're putting their name and their resume out there, and not think that people who are looking for the truth are not going to do their research on this.
Yep.
So let's find out who Lynette Zang is.
We're going to pull up her resume right here, and we're going to read out loud to you who she is. Later on, we'll play a clip from her, but she knows her stuff. She's not a nobody coming out from nowhere. She's very smart. She has, a pretty good education behind her. And so this is from LinkedIn profile. Lynette Zang, Chief Marketing Analyst at ITM Trading.
Yeah.
University of Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And this is the description. Lynette came to ITM Trading in 2002. So she's been there for 15 years. Okay?
It's a long time.
It's a long time to do this.
In one company?
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
Where were those other guys 15 years ago? Anyway,
good question.
When gold was severely undervalued and the U.S. dollar was on its last strongest peak, she built a database to track client holdings and execute the same strategy she established for herself based on repeatable patterns.
Well, those two things aren't very easy to do.
Okay,
Not many
she's an analyst.
Well,
she
not many
recognizes
people,
patterns.
Not many people build databases.
Yeah, who does that? I mean, I did stuff like that, but it's like, I get it. She has a certain kind of brain, right? She then built a database to track all general asset classes and identify the long-term trend and where we are in the trend cycle. Her goal is to help clients survive and thrive through this global currency life cycle issue based upon consistent patterns during this type of trend. She believes that to do this, one needs to be in the right place with the right asset at the right time. And in order to do that, one needs to identify the fundamental value, the long-term trend, and where we are in the trend cycle. Her mission is to share these tools with anyone who wants them, teach them how to see the underlying truth of the markets, and enable them to make educated, independent choices for their interests.
Sounds great.
To this end, she researches, writes, and publishes extensively, always with the goal of simplifying complex financial topics, which is exactly what she does in her videos, which I really appreciate. She has been a keynote speaker on currencies at a number of educational forums throughout the country. In addition, she publishes a monthly live webinar series which puts pictures, animations, and words together in an effort to help people understand the truth in all of the markets.
Wow.
All of her work is fact and evidence-based, and she shares these tools openly, both through her blog and through weekly webinars through ITM Trading's website. So she's not a nobody that came from nowhere. She's been working for this company for 15 years. If you go to her YouTube channel, she's been on it making videos for at least 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay? And she's got blogs, and she puts tons of work out there. And if you look at her work, she has pictures to back everything up and charts and graphs. And these things take a lot of work to do when you're making content like that.
Yeah, communicating.
And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So she's very polished, professional, and well-spoken.
I also have to say what stood out for me is that she does have experience in building databases to track all general asset classes. Now, what does ACChain stand for again?
Let's go back and look that up.
I do believe it's
ACChain stands for Assets Collection Chain. So
I think she comes at this from a perspective that is very valuable.
Well, if you are making a database, you have to collect data to put in the database,
Oh.
right? Right? So if you are collecting assets to put in a chain, it's the same thing.
Yes.
Same thing, people. She knows what she's talking about.
What we're looking at are people who are using the splitting of hairs and looking at trying to say that they know more about the minutia than this professional here who has a high-level view of what is happening.
Right. So with this in mind, it's like, okay, we started to watch a few videos, and we're actually going to go through a few of them here. We won't give you all the points of them, but we will give you the links. And we recommend that you go and watch these videos because you'll see how she presents herself. So first, here is a video. This is the main video, I believe. She put this out, I think it was August 8th or something. This is the video that all the other YouTube talking heads started to react to. Okay, this is the one where she explains everything. So we've just summarized it to outline what she's saying in this video. So there's also another video that she put out by Greg Hunter. It was an interview with Greg Hunter. First she went on his show and she got 150,000 views and
That's
a lot
right.
of attention from that. Then she went back on, and this is another video that we watched, and she was explaining it again. She was explaining these main points, and that video was called "The Financial System is Trustless. Gold is up to 9,000 something," right? So we'll put a link for there.
Between
as well.
this video and the video of Greg Hunter is what got her all of this attention.
Yes. So what is she saying in these videos? First, what she's doing is, in the beginning, her and Greg Hunter talk about how there's been this sudden shift, because she works for a company that works with gold, right?
Yeah.
There's been this huge shift with all of these clients suddenly buying into gold, right?
These clients contact their company, the company she works for, and they want to order more gold.
Millions and millions of dollars, like large quantities of gold.
Right.
So that's a really big shift, and when something like that happens, you have to pay attention. So they discussed that they've been seeing that happen. He verified, yep, I'm seeing it over here, and she's like, yep, we're seeing it over there. So that's the first thing they talked about. So our question is why? Why is everybody trying to get and buy gold?
Right.
The next thing that, and she asked the same question. She concludes that it's China's quantum article. The fact that, China just made a quantum computer.
Yes.
Okay. As soon as that article came out, all these people started buying gold.
Yes.
Okay. So that's why she concludes. So we asked the question why, which is why we started digging. And again, our answer to that, which I think is hers as well, is that China controls communications when they have that quantum system up, and that trumps the ACChain 256-bit encryption that Bitcoin supposedly runs on with its hundreds of millions of nodes or whatever, right? So
Yes, basically the article summarized that China is in the process of building a quantum network.
Yeah.
That is both ground and satellite based.
Now, then what she does is she explains what ACChain goals are. That's that ACChain cryptocurrency
Yes.
from China platform we were talking about.
Yes.
She explains what their goals are, but she does it according to their own website and white paper. What you're looking at on the screen here, and we will play a segment of this for you in just a second. This graph that we're looking at with ACChain and the ACChain in the middle,
Right.
this actually comes from their white paper. And just for people that don't know, what is a white paper?
Yeah, so a white paper is a government or other authoritative report giving information or proposals on an issue. It's a public disclosure of the plans of a new company, venture, or project.
Right, so it's public disclosure, right? A white
Yes.
paper. They tell you what they're going to do. So before we go into Lynette Zang's explanation of it, let's actually go to the ACChain website ourselves.
Right to the source.
And read to you what the website says, what their plans are, and then we'll listen to it, Lynette Zang explain it even further.
Okay.
This is their website right here. We go down, scroll down to, all this is good information, but you said there was this one area.
Yeah, I mean, the
Right
first
here.
half of the page talks about the goals of their ICO, which is past tense. They've already met these goals, by the way. Ethereum and Bitcoin being the tokens that are underpinning this ICO. They've already met those goals, so we're just moving down to the project introduction and its goals.
So we'll start reading it. ACChain has built a pure decentralized platform for asset digitization. It is the common community of asset tokens by copying asset blockchain general ledgers to implement asset digitalization and using ACC asset collection coin as a common exchange medium to realize assets circulation. ACChain is a distributed general ledger with self-improving ability. Each node can create a new block by working on the chain, copying the general ledger, and to form an asset chain. ACC is the standard token in ACCchain for tokens circulating and interchanging. As a general ledger token, ACC can be used as the common medium to be used to realize the interchange and circulation of token and standard token. ACC is the tool of asset digitalization for the global applications. ACC Community is launching a global ICO for tokens that made on ACCchain, structuring international supernode networks. The process of the first supernode network is also the process of the exchange between mainstream tokens in the market with asset standard token. ACC, they will jointly form the Digital Asset Interchange Object, SDR digital currency.
It's right there.
Right there, okay? I know that was a lot to read through. I'll read that last line again. ACC will jointly form the Digital Asset Interchange Object, SDR digital currency.
Special drawing right digital currency.
There is your global currency, your one world currency.
That doesn't sound like a nothing to me. That looks like
yeah.
something.
And these people that are against it are saying that's never going to exist, it doesn't happen, that's not what it is, so on and so forth. In the meantime, each global node will establish regional general ledger token, GLT, for regional circulation. Thus, the digital currency SDR will be the main exchange coin along with tokens of each international node's general ledger token in the interchangeable exchange, in the international exchange. By the way, there are plenty of graphics in here showing that the SDR is located in a position above, meaning more important, of more value, better than both Bitcoin and Ethereum.
What we're talking about is a platform that supersedes the blockchain in which Bitcoin and Ethereum and any other coin uses, and is inherently on its own chain. Bitcoin and these other hundreds of coins that Andrew Hoffman was talking about are subsets, are merely elements within this new system.
All right, and just to finish this out, in this ecosystem, each node's token can use GLT to realize regional circulation, and each GLT and use ACC to realize international circulation. Those control the international supernodes, or those who control is what they need to say, because it's translated from Chinese, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Those who control the international supernodes win the market. So so in a nutshell, they're taking over. That's their plan.
And that's the new infrastructure. It is quantum computer based. It is using ground and space-based assets to create a quantum network, and it will be controlled. The first node will be controlled and owned in Asia, probably China. And that's basically it.
Right, so let's just go over here and listen to Lynette Zang herself describing this whole thing. We're just going to listen to a good, 5 minutes or so of one of these videos, and of course we'll leave the link.
By the way, the website's very transparent about what the plans are.
But let me show you how this works. Now, this is a little confusing, and understand that a wonderful viewer, Kevin, sent me the link that got me started on this rabbit hole. I'm going to go into it a whole lot more. But the goal since the early 70s has really been to dematerialize assets so that it's held inside of the system, and then they have the bankers and the corporations have more control. So this is where they complete that transition. Now the ACC holds the legal title, so it represents real tangible wealth, tangibles. Now up here for the tool of barter, you have Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those are the two most widely used and accepted digital currencies. You use the Bitcoin and Ethereum to buy the ACC, and bam, it turns into a digital token SDR. Now you can see that it goes through this whole process, and they say the nodes. So these would be the centers where you could buy and sell things that would verify things for you. The US supernode has been discovered, and the Chinese supernode has been discovered. Well, this one would have been discovered first because they're the ones that created the ACC. So they're directly linked to it, and they have the main coin. What I think, and again, probably subliminal, there's lots of those messages in this stuff, but you'll notice in the corner here that there are 5 little dots. I have no idea what it represents. I couldn't find out what it represents. But by the US node, there's only 4. It could be that it signals a shift in power from the US to China. The other thing is that because this is all autonomous, we don't know who actually is managing or owning that node. But what we do know is that whoever holds power and owns these nodes controls the market. But everything flows through this international node exchange, which the main driver of that is the SDR. Okay, so I want you to keep in mind there's going to be a lot more on this. Bear with me here. I'm working really hard to understand it so I can explain it. But what this really does, bottom line, is it creates a direct relationship, title, equity, between hard, tangible assets and an infinitely divisible digital currency. I'll let you think about that for a minute. But that would they can turn anything into a digital asset. I'm going to show you that in just a second. But first I want to show you, and it might be a little hard to see, but this box in there says SDR, world currency. And then all of the other tokens, and you can see Britain, USA, etc., are all tied to the ACChain, which is really the SDR. That's what it really is. That's the bottom line of it. So once they have everything in place, then they've actually accomplished that mission to have all currencies pegged to the SDR. We're not there yet, but there's certainly a good start. And here's where they show you how every single thing can be digitized. So here's your house that you live in. It's a physical asset. You can walk through the front door every day, or side door, some door, and it's turned into just a bunch of digits. And then they can turn those into a digital token, and then they can attach a symbol to it. And you can see there's the dollar symbol, there's the euro dollar symbol. And all of a sudden, you've now converted this into an easily traded instrument. That's all I can call it. It's hard for me to call this an asset because it's still in cyberspace and it's still not real, though I do know this is where we're going. It's true. So we have to really understand it more than just fighting it.
And we'll stop it there, but please watch the whole thing because it's really...
Absolutely. It's amazing.
It's important, but we'll just continue on with our summary. What Lynette Zang's doing in this presentation, she's looking at and she's spelling out a long-term totalitarian tiptoe plan that has been carried out over the last 100 years or so.
Yeah.
And so the highlights of this plan is a long-term shifting of the entire global economy from trading real physical assets like gold, commodities, real estate, etc., to a digitized platform that trades real assets for digital ether, which is then controlled by one source.
Right.
So
it's like we're shifting from trading real for real to trading ether for real. you know, in my opinion, it's the alchemist's dream.
And yeah, we're going to get more into that in a second because it goes pretty deep. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, this is the new world order, one world currency.
That's how I see it.
And it's also the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
Okay? That's why people are freaking out about it. We're watching it unfold. It's happening right now. And it's also what was shown in the 1988 Economist magazine, which I have a picture of right here. They show the phoenix rising from the ashes, and it says, get ready for a world currency. And look what's around that neck of that bird. It's a coin.
Yeah.
It's a coin. Is it a Bitcoin? Is it a digital coin? You know, it's got.
Oh yeah, with the knot or zero in the middle.
Look at all of that. It's got T. Look, it has T on it. It says T right here.
Yeah.
So we know that China just digitized T.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we're bringing that up again. And what year does that say?
It's 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Right. So the cover of this magazine, this was put out in 1988.
Yeah.
And it has a picture of this on it. So, you know, when they show you what they're going to do before they do it, this is what people are talking about right now. I don't know, guys. You decide. What do you think? What do you think's going on here, right? So, basically, again, the whole, like, plan here that she explains pretty well is to get everybody off of the gold standard and then on to paper fiat notes.
Yeah. And then to go from that, to get everyone off of cash and go into a digital controlled platform by supernodes.
Controlled by supernodes, and then control the supernodes via quantum computing.
So what we're looking at are leaps in technology. And here's the thing. If you have a network that is controlled by quantum computing, but you are trading on a platform that is encrypted by 256. That's like a donkey going down a highway that is surrounded by Brinks trucks that are going at 100 miles an hour. You can't compete. Not only that, you're dealing with weak encryption. And if we start dealing in that space, what that opens it up is to anyone with access to the quantum network could use that network to crack your weak and flimsy 256 encrypted account.
All right, she also brought a couple of articles to our attention in that particular video that were rather concerning, and I just wanted to highlight them here. The first one, this is from her slides from the articles, and this is the digital asset SDR system establishing the new order of the blockchain finance. And this is dated in May 23rd of 2017. And it says in this highlighted box that ACChain made its appearance in Dallas, Fort Worth to launch a commercial application using blockchain technology. It's called Serene Country Home Group.
Sounds nice.
It sounds very serene and nice, right? Launched the initial coin offering of its digital asset retail, or RET. Real estate token. Okay, so this is the first incorporation to issue SDR coins. And so she did some further research, and she found out that this company called Serene Country Homes is a global company that's headquartered in Singapore. Now, when I saw this, I was kind of like, whoa, you know.
Yeah, no, why was that?
Because something triggered in my memory, in like the file cabinet of my memory from a few years ago, when I heard people saying there's all these Chinese investors that are buying up all of this American land. And they were doing it in Texas.
In Texas specifically.
All right, so I had to go dig that one up, and I'll just pull that up real quick.
Wow.
Right, so this is from a couple years ago. This is dated, this is what I was remembering back in July 2015.
Wow.
It says here, Chinese buyers feed new energy into Texas real estate.
So this has been going on for a few years.
Yep, so with investors nervously watching the Shanghai stock market, Chinese are now the biggest foreign buyers of American real estate, and they are setting their sights on the biggest state in the lower 48. Texas is seeing a huge influx of Chinese buyers, both investors and owner-occupants, thanks to more affordable housing, so on and so forth. So I know this started happening a couple years ago, and I just kind of went, well, that's weird. Why is China buying up all this land in Texas?
Right.
Well, now, here we are a couple years later.
Fast forward to 2017.
With this digital currency, and they just announced that they're now going to turn real estate in Texas into a digital currency.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then here's another very interesting slide that she brought up, which was extremely concerning, because it says here that by China digitizes the SDR into coins, the real estate in Texas, but U.S. citizens are not invited.
And in other words, U.S. citizens aren't invited on the offering to acquire the real estate in Texas.
You're not allowed to buy, if you're a U.S. citizen, you're not allowed to buy Texas real estate through
this platform.
So there, and let me just let's read this. She reads this out loud, but let's read it out loud as well. When you go to the ACChain website to go to try to buy real estate using coins, right? The investment offering is the message that comes up. It goes, the investment offerings listed on this trading platform are being offered exclusively to persons outside of the United States and may not be purchased by any U.S. citizen or resident of the U.S. Any person desiring to invest in the offerings on this site must verify that they are not a U.S. citizen or resident and must provide documentation of nationality and residence. Nationality and residence of all investors will be independently verified, and it is determined, if it's determined that an investor is a U.S. citizen or resident, the investment will be revoked and all money will be refunded to the investor. So we're seeing people from different countries buying up land inside of America, turning that land into a digital currency, and then telling other American citizens you're not allowed to buy it. It's land in your own country, and you're not allowed to buy it.
Let the carpetbagging begin.
Carpetbagging. You know, you brought up the definition of a carpetbagger, because it's been a long time since I've used that phrase.
Well, let's use a bit of a reference point.
Right? Let's go dig up what carpetbagging is. All right, Tivon, what's a carpetbagger?
Well, I mean, we have two definitions we can go by for Americans. It was the act of, after the Civil War, it was a northerner who went into the South. You know, the South was decimated, right? They were seeking private gain under the Reconstruction, you know, the Reformation acts that were sent or mandated by the government. Basically, it was an act of people who had wealth, money, assets, resources to go to places that were war-torn in the South to make a profit. So just bear that in mind. Maybe a reconstruction of some kind has to take place, and during that act of reconstruction is the opportunity to go in and buy things up and to make lots of money. Another definition would be a non-resident or a new resident who seeks to private gain from an area, often by meddling in its business or politics.
Well, let's leave it there.
Yeah, we'll
and
leave
let
it
the
there.
people decide what they think about what we just covered, right? We'll leave it there. Obviously, you can sense a little emotion in our voice because, you know, this doesn't feel really cool to us, but it's the signs of the times, folks. This is what's happening. This is why people were getting so upset.
And well, this is the power of cryptocurrency if left unchecked.
One more slide that I want to bring up that she shows in her presentation is this one here. This is from CoinDesk. This is an ICO tracker, and we just showed you what ICO is. And this is showing how just recently, in January, May, like look what happened to the ICOs, right?
Wow.
There used to be like no ICOs just a year ago, and all of a sudden there's this huge spike
Yes.
in ICOs. Okay. So
Wow, that's a lot. That's a huge change.
when you see that giant spike, and how she's explaining it is that when you're shifting an entire global economy
Yes.
off of cash and onto something else to do an economy shift, a global currency reset, or the first stages of a global currency reset, a spike like this in ICOs for digital currency that's what that looks like.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're seeing. We're looking right here. This is the economy shift, and look at the dates.
That's amazing. That's in a few short months.
Yeah. What's happening? What are they doing? Something is moving and shifting, and we're watching it right before our own eyes. So by the way, she even, in her videos, she even explains the derivatives market, which has been like my private joke of like the most complex and impossible to explain financial Gordian knot that exists out there in the world is the derivatives market, and how it's just this giant mess, and how they were planning on using the derivatives markets to crash the entire global economy. And she does a fantastic job of explaining what the derivatives market is. So once again, it shows me that this lady knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in what she says. I really appreciate the way that she explains it.
Very much so.
And because of this, we were questioning all the talking heads even more. Because her background is so transparent. She puts her face on a video in front of you, so
Yes.
you know that she's a real person.
Right.
And and she's not some like voice or something. And she gives you her real name. Her LinkedIn profile is out there.
Yeah.
And the company that she works for, she tells you the name of the company.
Right.
Right? So these other folks, whether they're good or bad, we don't know, but what we do know is that they seem to hide behind logos and pseudonyms.
Well, the thing is that if you're going to put that kind of information out there, she's out there. She knows what the risks are. That means that for people who are looking for the truth, look, I give her more credence because, she's putting herself out there. So,
And again, let me state it again. Tivon and I are not hiding behind logos and pseudonyms. We do this on these shows because it's easier to make these videos. If you want to see what we look like, if you want to know our names and our backgrounds, go to our website, realspeaks.com. It's all right there. We're completely transparent, always have been, always will be. We're not hiding. And also, just as a little side note, we don't monetize our videos.
Yeah.
We never have, and we never will. So that's just because we're going to go into something else here. I started thinking about these other YouTubers and like what their motivations might be and why they're all kind of switching sides and getting triggered and stuff, right? So you have to just ask yourself, what are the financial motivators behind some of these people on the internet? People make a lot of money on YouTube, or at least they did until recently. 7 months ago or so, YouTube really cracked down on ad revenue.
In alternative media.
So a lot of people lost a lot of money. Like, for example, I know one YouTuber whose name I'm not going to mention because this is just an example, who was doing videos that were supposedly exposing the evil deeds of prosperity preachers. And I just bring this up because it's like, the prosperity, it's like, don't listen to them, all they want is your money, and I'm exposing the evilness of prosperity preachers. Meanwhile, I find out later on that very YouTuber who was ragging on and exposing all these prosperity preachers was making $100,000 a year in YouTube ad revenue to make videos exposing prosperity preachers.
There you go.
So, does anybody else see the irony in that?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it one way or the other, what I think about prosperity preachers and so on and so forth, but you have to measure out the motivations. And by the way, this wasn't like some troll was outing them. This was, there's sites where you can go on YouTube where you can see just how much money people are making in ad revenue.
Right.
And so that's where this data came from. It
yeah.
came from like, factual places.
Yeah, that's it.
So, anyway, there's a lot of speculation that goes into the rise of cryptocurrency. We've seen that.
Yeah.
Tons of speculation out there.
Billions of dollars right now.
So ask yourself, how do these people make money? Especially if they're an anonymous online source. So that's just discernment, folks. Always ask those questions.
Yeah.
And we're going to shift this conversation. And we're going to move into the spiritual aspects of it. Because we kind of want to go in a few places which we think is going to be really cool. And it's a long show this week, making up for lost time. And hang in there, pause it if you need to, and come back. But we're going to go into some spiritual dimensions because we really want to talk about the mark of the beast, what all this means. And we're going to analyze this video that has all of these subliminal messages in it. So many it'll make your head explode. and we're going to actually go through it and show you this ACChain and their subliminal messages, where they actually talk about the devil and God, and it's right there in your face, folks.
Yeah, there you have it.
So stay tuned. All right, as promised, let's take a trip down a few interesting rabbit holes here and talk about some spiritual aspects behind all of this. We're going to start with this concept of the mark of the beast. A lot of people have been talking about this. Just in case you don't know what the actual scripture says regarding the mark of the beast, it's found in Revelation 13:17. It says, "And the second beast required all people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of its name."
Right.
As with all Bible scriptures, you know, there's so many layers, there's so much symbology behind it, but it very specifically says a couple of things here, just for the purposes of our show right now. It's that nobody can buy or sell without this mark. That's pretty intense, and we're definitely looking at something that looks just like that, a system where, you know, nobody can buy or sell without, you know, having a mark. And then it also says the number of its name. It does go on to say that the number is 666, right? Many people know that. That's where that comes from. But it says that the mark is a number.
Yeah.
And you think about how a code is just a number.
It is.
You know, a code for a blockchain. Is a blockchain a mark? So these are the questions that are floating around right now. We don't have any conclusive answers, and we're not going to tell you what to think. We're just telling you what the scripture says, and you can ponder it and think about it, but it's just very, very interesting.
Well, it does raise questions, especially what Lynette was able to illustrate, is that everything on this planet would be defined as some kind of physical asset that can be given a number, an identifiable number.
Yeah, and in her videos, she doesn't go on any kind of spiritual tangents at all. She just keeps it facts-based and financial-based, and, you know, that's all she says. However, the reason why we're going on this path is because the video from ACChain, or ACChain,
Yes.
that we're about to go through and analyze, they're the ones that go down a spiritual path. They are the ones that put things like God and the devil and all of this interesting stuff, and the symbology, like we said, it's so much it'll make your head explode.
Everything is going to be digitized with this system, because the system would be designed to allow that to happen. And now in the video that you're about to see, it's going to be grains of rice, tea, commodities, all kinds of assets. I mean, I would throw that in like cows, livestock.
Well, we're going to go through it step by step. We're not going to play it all the way through without pausing it. We'll put the link so you can play it on your own if you want to just watch the whole thing uninterrupted. But what we're going to do is we're going to pause it, because it's only like 2 minutes long. So we have to pause it a lot because there's so much symbology flying through. We'll show you what we're talking about. And without any further ado, here we go. All right, so we start off with their logo. You see the chevrons again and all of those different dots and lines. Those are the nodes that we were talking about earlier in the show, and the lines are the connections and the communications between them.
Creating a mesh.
Okay, nothing too much so far, although we'll talk about the logo in a second. All right, what we're seeing here is a guy, and he is running through at a relatively slow and steady pace.
In a virtual world.
In a virtual world, and he is he's a digital person, okay? And as we get further and further, he's like a being of light almost. And you've got gold bars, so you're seeing the past, okay?
Yes.
You're seeing a representation of what things were in the past, and it was all gold currency. Now you'll notice that his light body has changed.
Change color.
And because everything's changed. Now we're going to be seeing fiat currency, okay, on the sides. Now, there's so much in the screen, so just bear with us because we have to show you, okay? First of all, he's a light body, right? A being of light. The scripture does say that even Satan himself disguises himself as an angel of light, right? And he's coming out of a triangular portal, okay? Which
Yes.
it's got Illuminati screaming all over it. That's all I can say. If you see all the Illuminati videos where they're doing the triangle, right?
So this body is shifted from being yellow to being blue.
But the most
and-
important thing
Yeah.
is you read down here where this is the subtitles translated from Chinese into English, and it actually says blockchain. The devil uses it to destroy the world.
Like, was that necessary to put that in this advert?
They thought it was because it's loaded. So let's play it a little bit further. We'll watch all the currencies pop up and fiat currencies around the sides. Okay, the next thing with more currencies, the God uses it to benefit mankind. Now, it might be translation, but when we're talking about the God versus God, there's usually an inclination of gods with a lowercase g, like lesser gods, right?
Well, it's lowercase g here in the advert.
Right, lowercase g. I mean, it could just be a translation. I'm just saying, take a look at that, right? Okay, now we've got the $100 bill, America.
All
right?
these currencies.
Is right there, because the first currency to pop up was China,
Yeah.
over here, right? The Chinese yuan. And then there was these other things. Now we've got the American currency, like kind of taking the lead, right?
Yeah, in the front of this running man.
Oh, did we catch that? You might
Yeah.
have to go back a little bit, but see, this is a giant robot hand, an artificial robot, artificial intelligence type of hand that comes in and
Sweeps
basically,
aside.
It sweeps aside all fiat currencies. When America's currency was the one in the middle, the $100 bill,
Yes.
it just goes, sweeps it aside. No more currency at all, no more fiat, and it's a robotic hand. Now, what we're going into here is all of these nodes. Look at the little light beams that are coming out. These are representative of the nodes and the super nodes
On any
where they
network.
are creating all of these cryptocurrencies with their big processors and all their different machines on the new network. Okay, the new world of digitalization is being built.
Satellites.
All right, now we've got the same running man, light being. He's running on top of the globe.
Yeah. And what you see are commodities.
Now what you're seeing are different types of commodities that are floating by. So we have oils, different kinds of oils.
Rice and grains.
Yep, rice, grains, wheat. These are all things that countries offer as a representation of the value that their country has to offer. And then you see the country names flying by.
Electronics.
Okay. The rice and grains and oils has now turned into electronics commodities. So we've got computer screens, smartphones, and tablets, different kinds of electronics. Okay. So it says in the bottom the number of nodes is limited, but the resource is unlimited.
Which has huge implications.
All right. Now we've shifted into tea.
Yeah.
Okay, these are pictures of tea.
That's right.
Tea and markets, and tea in places like China is like their number one trading source, so that's pretty significant. Right, here's more tea. By the way, I went to like a Chinese import store when I was living in Boston, and it was this giant warehouse, and the section of the warehouse that was occupied by their tea products and different tea paraphernalia was so enormous So tea is a huge deal for these particular countries. So when they say they've digitized tea, don't think it's a light thing. This is far from Lipton, folks. Okay. Now we've moved from tea, and now we're showing you cars.
Sports cars, by the way.
Fancy, like, off-terrain vehicles and sports cars. And it says that you will be the citizen of a digital kingdom after obtaining the registration chain. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, whoa, because of all of our spiritual research, because, we're Christians, we read scripture, we listen to certain preachers. The word kingdom
Yes.
is biblical, okay? So this is biblical, what we're seeing right now. And even Sean from SGT was like, when he saw digital kingdom, it's like, that's biblical. We talk about the kingdom of heaven, okay?
Yeah.
And how there's the kingdom of earth and all of that. So this is biblical with the wording that they're using. But look at this. You'll be a citizen of the digital kingdom after you've obtained the registration chain.
Yeah, what's that?
Okay? I mean, it almost looks like a direct, this is just my speculation, a direct translation of Mark of the Beast. After you've obtained the mark. Right? So, I don't know. That's just me. You guys decide what you think it means. Okay? Now we've moved from cars into houses, but
I have to admit,
giant
though,
mansion houses.
But these weren't like little Geo Metros that they were showing. These were like really nice, fast sports cars and SUVs and mansions.
Yep. Okay, the tool of asset digitalization is opening the door of new world.
Yeah.
I mean, just throw the word order at the end of that. I mean, come on, right?
Then the translation would be complete.
The new world order. I mean, whatever. That's just me. You guys decide. So you see here's all their assets, and that's what ACChain is all about. It's about digitizing assets. They will have a coin, but they're also digitizing everything else in the world.
But this coin, this ACChain, is inherently above Bitcoin and Ethereum in the ACChain network. And of all the currencies in the past, when they are in their digital form, are merely tokens within this network. That's it.
Yeah, they're tokens. So this is kind of going to take over all of them. See how you have all these different tokens, all the different currencies, and then ACChain replaces
It's
all
like
of
being
them.
in Vegas, I guess.
Okay, there's your SDR, International Digital Currency. Okay, look at the positioning. Okay, you've got ACChain on top of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
In fact, when you go to their website and they're talking about their ICO, when they outline that, in order if you were an investor to invest in the ACChain, that is a requirement. If you were to invest in the project, they were looking for Bitcoin and Ethereum for the investors to contribute.
Right, so basically they're going to take over Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah.
And, those two will be phased out because they were kind of considered like the testing.
I think
round.
over time what's going to happen is Bitcoin will be seen to be inferior to this new network.
Right.
Clearly because of its security features.
Yep.
I'm claiming that right now. The
All right.
security features at Bitcoin is going to be the reason why it's going to phase out after people have been robbed, big time.
Yeah.
Robbed. Mm-hmm. Then they're going to move to a better digital solution.
Okay, the landing of asset digitalization dynasty So there's another pretty big word. Okay. This tells you to join ACChain and become a super node. We also want to show you this video of theirs that we found because it had some more interesting things in it. It's only 34 seconds and it goes really fast, and it has this happy guitar music behind it, which makes you go, oh, it's all wonderful, great stuff. So, but we're gonna pause it and let you read the translations of some of these things. Okay, ACChain community is launching a global ICO for tokens that are made on ACChain. They're structuring international supernode networks. The process of the first supernode network is also the process of the exchange between mainstream tokens in the market with Asset Standard Token, ACC. And again, we've got that same hierarchical structure where you've got ACChain positioned above Bitcoin.
They're
and
very
Ethereum.
open and obvious about this.
They want to take over those two. Okay. Woo! They will jointly form the digital asset interchange object, the SDR digital currency. Okay, SDR world currency. Right there. It's right there. They're not hiding. Right in your face. In the meantime, each global node will establish regional general ledger token, GLT, for regional circulation. Thus, the digital currency SDR will be the main exchange coin along with tokens. So this is your one world currency.
Yes.
Of each international node's general ledger token in the international exchange. Okay, and again, look at this graph they've got here. We've got the SDR world currency right in the middle, says it right there, and they're showing the other currencies that are basically based off of that. Okay, those who control the international supernodes win the market. I have to say that again.
Well, this is like the second or third video where they emphasize this statement.
They're telling you, whoever controls the international supernodes win the market. How are they going to control the international supernodes? With the quantum computers.
Okay, so there's several questions I have to ask. You know, the audience is probably going to ask, is quantum computers are processing this network. All right, so are the quantum computers, are they buried somewhere secure? Are they buried somewhere safe? Are people going to be going to wars over access and control of quantum computers? How far is this going to go?
All right, we also wanted to talk a little bit more about the logo, because the logo for ACChain, if you see like up here in the corner, you've got this chevron thing, and this is a video called Concerns Are Legit, Documented Evidence from our favorite channel over at Face Like the Sun, and he's basically going through his observations of this same content in his own way. But he basically comes out and he shows the logo, and he found another logo. So just take a few moments to watch this clip.
ACChain, if you watch the video, and this is what everybody started talking about, is this video with very interesting. You have the blockchain here starting the network systems and the logo. So let me start with the logo here. So this logo, definitely, you know, kind of the triangular type situation or whatever, breaking through, right? At the top there, going into a new reality, whatever you want to call it. You know, there was a logo that I found that's similar in nature, and that comes from the spacefrontier.org website here. And here you go. Here's the logo on the top left. Same thing. It breaks through the circle right at the top there, and it's kind of a pyramid or road shape type thing. Let me compare the two here. So you got that logo here for ACChain. This is the spacefrontier.org logo. They're basically a company that's trying to create free enterprise and industry in space, right? Which is, I get it, you know, some of you guys don't believe in space, but this is what's going on. They're trying to create some sort of free enterprise.
Right, when I saw that logo and I saw that chevron, We're not going to go down this because I remember watching videos of symbology, and there's all of these different symbols with the chevron, and basically it's like it's an occult thing, it's a secret knowledge thing. They use it on a lot of different organizations. You see it all over military emblems. And what I first thought of was NASA, because if you look at NASA's logo, here's a chevron in NASA's logo. So you can go ahead and look that up on your own, and you'll see there's lots and lots and lots of symbolism using chevrons, and it's not always a positive thing. They're definitely eking it in there for some reason, so the fact that ACChain has chevrons in its logo is something to take notice of, I would say. So we're going to shift a little bit, because what we do understand is that if our money systems were created on gold, right, for the most part, in the very beginning, it was created on gold, and then we shifted it away to fiat, and fiat based on oil, and now we're trying to shift it again to digital currency. Let's go into this root of it, the gold. Like, where does the gold come from? So if you look back at the Book of Enoch, which was an ancient text that was found not too long ago, like 50 years ago or something like that, that had been preserved for a long time, it talks about this whole system of angels that fell from heaven, and they came down and they mated with the daughters of men, and they did all kinds of things with human beings. They brought all this knowledge and wisdom from the heavens to a species of humans who at that time were not really prepared for it. Yeah. And the book goes into all the different things that they taught us. It says that they taught us, different the magic of different plants and root cuttings and healings, and there's this whole section that goes into how this angel, fallen angel by the name of Azazel, taught mankind the art of working with metals to forge them into weapons and swords and jewelry and different kinds of alchemical transactions as well. And what we're seeing in addition to that is some of these evidence, the evidence of coming up from these big monolithic structures. There's structures like this at Sacsayhuana in Peru with all of these giant stones that were kind of, it looks like they were molded together like clay, right? So what the theory here is that fallen angels, this is before the flood, taught mankind, or had the power to manipulate matter, manipulate stone, manipulate metal, and form it into whatever they wanted to.
Right.
Okay? So this goes along with what we're saying about fallen angels and teaching them about metals. They were also building these monolithic structures that you cannot rebuild today. These stones go back, they go back really far, and they weigh so much that we don't have cranes today that would be able to lift them.
Yeah, so you're talking about these megalith structures in Cusco, Peru. And they look like they were clearly manipulated. Solid stones that something had happened to them so that when they were laid together and fitted together, they deformed into each other's footprint. And there's no other way of fitting these stones together. So we're talking about a combination of ancient knowledge that we do not possess, and also perhaps with equipment that we don't have.
Now you might be wondering where we're going with this, because we're still talking about gold. We're talking about an element. We're talking about a metal. And we're talking about fallen angels that came back and taught people what to do with gold. There are many stories right now talking about how it was the Anunnaki that came and made this species of mankind, and they came for the gold and they stayed for the girls. That's kind of like our little side joke. But it's, there was this gold mining that was taking place. But what we want to say is that this is where we believe the monetary systems were originated. And the reason why is because we now live underneath this monetary system that is enslaving us, and it's just getting worse and worse as it's being manipulated. And that's the thing. What we have to understand and remember, at least from a biblical point of view, is that these aliens or demon forces, Satan, they don't own the gold and silver. They didn't create it. They can only manipulate it.
Right.
Right? So, as a matter of fact, there is a Bible verse that says how God owns all the gold and silver. It's in Haggai 2:8. He says, I will shake all the nations, and they will come with the wealth of all nations, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. Right? So, we're talking about how these fallen rebellious angels are manipulating gold and creating a monetary system that over thousands of years is manipulated even more and more and more to enslave mankind.
Right.
Right? That's the origins of this. And it's biblical and it's prophetic, because when you talk about how there's going to be a mark of the beast and nobody can buy or sell without it, it falls in line with what sounds to me like the plans of a fallen angel.
What's also interesting to note is even with this new digital system with quantum computers and all of this infrastructure, the thing that's underpinning it is still gold reserves, precious metals. And that was the main message that Lynette Zang was communicating also. They're clearly very smart people who've figured this out and are still investing in precious metals despite all of this technological change.
And something I want to just go down this rabbit hole too, because when she said, Lynette Zang said in one of her videos, she said, you can't reproduce gold. And now Tivon and I work in technology. We have, Tivon's an engineer and he has his technology background. And I said, is that true? Can we not create gold? And most people think you can't replicate it. That's why it's so valuable.
Creating and replicating are two different things.
Right. So that's why it's so valuable, because it's really, really hard to make gold, right? But then Tivon brought some really interesting things to light that I hadn't thought about.
Just that in the past couple of years, there have been people who have been able to, what you want to call clone gold, take precious metals, put it in the crucible within a microwave oven surrounded by ground powder brown glass, like from beer bottles. And when you take these samples of gold and you turn on the microwave oven after a period of time, when it's done, you have this molten gold, and you find that the volume of gold is more than what you put in the microwave oven. Essentially, the quartz in that crushed brown glass bottle from the glass has certain portions of it have turned into minute fragments of gold. So through this process, you can actually clone gold if you have an energy source.
Right. So you're saying that there are modern day alchemists.
Yes.
Energy technology people working in labs, and they're actually creating gold using basically brown glass and microwave ovens and some other knowledge in order to create gold. Right?
And we put a link up there to demonstrate the process.
Absolutely. So it can be done. The problem is, and one person actually made a joke on that video. They said, okay, I did it and it worked, and I made a couple of grams of gold, and I sold my gold for 30 pounds, right? And then it said, however, the problem is that my energy bill in order to make that gold cost me 700 pounds. So it's like, that's the whole point. You don't have the energy to create the money, to create the gold. And it's the same thing here with this new blockchain. You need a lot of energy in order to have all of those processors working as fast as they can. And when you've got this quantum computing, that just blows everything out of the water. So we hope that we were able to make that little bit of a connection there. And we'll close out on one thought. There was only one time in the Bible when Jesus got angry. And that's when he went to the temple and he saw the money changers. And they were manipulating the weights and measures of their gold. Right? So they were corrupting the value of the gold, and thereby corrupting the value of people's work and labor. And they were doing it also on what was supposed to be holy ground. So he went crazy, and he started flipping tables and whipping people. Okay, that's what Jesus did. So the only time he got mad like that was because of the gold and money changers.
Human transactions between human beings being corrupted.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where we're at. We'll keep watch on this story. We'll update you on it. Enjoy all the links, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Draw your own conclusions. conclusions, and we'll see you next time on Real Speaks.
Goodbye, everyone.